Digital product strategy. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. That's the main thing that I do in my office. And what we do, we're a company, we help companies, organizations and funded startups to build relevant digital products. That's the area we're really focusing on now. Train their teams and solve business problems. And we've been doing that now for about 2 years. So our company is about 17 years old, but this is where we've gone to now. And product strategy, that's basically what we're involved in now. It's converting a business strategy into a designed, actionable problem-solving process, but within that proximate time. So we always set a time limit to when this should happen, or how this should, what results you can get within a proximate time. And obviously we have to understand the market, the users, and the company aspirations. So what is good strategy and bad strategy? Some people have trouble understanding the difference between the two. Well, bad strategy, first of all, is not your budget forecasts. It's not graphs, and it's not your goals or your aspirations. Saying we want to be we want to be making 10 million, we want to be making 10 million next year. That's not a strategy. So a good strategy is solving critical issues with a proximate objective. In other words, you have X amount of time to do this. So we usually set targets for companies to work out if their strategy will work within a certain amount of time, and bring in multiple resources for a single objective. So it's about having clarity of what your objective is, and you can find people within your company from anywhere in the funnel to solve the problem. So this is Richard Rumlett. It's a really good book, Good Strategy, Bad Strategy. There's a lot of stuff about war in it, but if you get over that bit, the rest of it is quite good. So it's good strategy, it's a coherent mix of policy and then action designed to surmount a high stakes challenge. So that's another good point as well, that if you are working on a strategy, the strategy should be a high stakes challenge. So where does product strategy sit in? So like we were saying earlier on, there's your mission and your vision. So these are the things that you aspire to, what we want to be, what kind of a person, what kind of a profile our company has. But then underneath that you have the roadmap and the execution, what you're actually doing. So if you want to work on your product strategy, that's where it sits. It sits in between those two. So you have to kind of read what's above it and work out what's going to happen below it. So to give you an idea, what a good strategy contains 3 elements. So there's a diagnosis first. So this is where you'll find a really good CEO or someone leading a company. They'll make it easy for people to understand and communicate the nature of the challenge that they have. The second one is a guiding policy, and that's an area that we work with them on, which is the approach chosen to overcome a diagnosis. And then the coherent actions, the steps that you're going to take to accomplish it within approximate time. And remember as well, it is a high stakes challenge. That's what a product strategy should be working on. So product strategy, like designers, the reason why you got an interest in product strategy, because we're always iterating on design. So like designers, strategists should iterate on a high stakes challenge. So you could be constantly tweaking it and trying to improve it. And since a strategy can't be proven to be right, a strategy, it's still a hypothesis, so it should be tested and refined. You shouldn't be just going, right, this is the strategy, we're going to build it and ship it out there. And that's where you have big problems. So how do you test the product strategy? Well, basically computers are good for building and publishing, but they're not really good for solving problems. So what we usually do when companies come to us when they have a certain element of clarity about what their product strategy and the high stakes challenge is, we push them back to just using pens. And for 2 reasons. One, there's no limit what you can do with a pen, and that particular brand smells great as well. So is one we want to watch out for the Sharpies. So we do try and get them. The Sharpies as well are really good because it has a tick nib on the top of it. And these are just simple things, but they make a huge difference. It stops people writing loads of waffle. They get to the point when they're writing with a Sharpie. So the thicker the marker, the more clarity you'll get from the person. And so start experiments fast. So you must have a horizon where you can see the end, because people get tired. So you say, right, it's our product strategy. We're going to do it between April and May, or a 3-month period, whatever it is. So have a approximate time to do it. And the great thing that if it's great, you can double down and really work on it. And if it's bad, it just ended. Now we actually do that with clients as well, and we do it over 4 days. We actually combine it into a 4-day session. And it's about having a methodology to do that. So that's what we're working on at the moment. So going back to the product build cycle. So if you were working on a strategy and you have the product build cycle coming for your product, this is what it looks like. So you have your idea, you move into your build, then you launch it, you get your data back, you get that feedback, then you push that back into your idea and you go through that cycle. But the problem is, it's not actually set in 4 quadrants. It's kind of like that. The build is kind of like that, but in fact, it's more like that. So actually the build takes the longest amount of time. So you're leaving very little time for your most important thing, which is your data and your feedback. So what's the solution then? Well, it's to shortcut the whole approach, and that's why we try and do it over 4 days with a client. In fact, we only need the client for 2 days. So what we do is we shortcut that. We just go from the idea to the learn. So we prototype, we work with the client to work out what their problems are, we solve them, we test them with users. And I'm not going to go into too much detail on the sprint, but I'll just give a slight overview of how that works. So it's basically, like I said, a 4-day event, but you only use the client for 2 days. We define our challenges, create solutions on Tuesday, we curate on the best solutions, and we define what their prototype will look like for their digital product. And then on Wednesday we go away and we build a product in 1 day. Well, we've been doing all that, we've got 5 testers to test their product. So what we try and do, instead of just saying, this is what your product will look like, we look and try to give them qualitative data, not quantitative data. Quantitative data comes after you build your product and you get it out to your users, but we use qualitative data. And from that then we get feedback from the users and we check what the users have come back to us with regards to what their problem and their challenges were, and see if we actually solve them for them. So it's a very simple process. So what are the outcomes of a sprint when we work with people who are working on a high stakes challenge for a product strategy? To get a high fidelity interactive prototype, it's actually tested with real users and it gives them a clear direction where to go next. So like I was saying, with a build, you're actually building something and you're hoping that after 2 or 3 months, when you build it and launch it, you're hoping that people will like it or people will actually use it. So what this does is almost like throwing a dart. That's like throwing a dart in the dark. The lights come on when you hit the board and you get a good idea where to go. So it's a very quick process to find out if you're on the right strategy, if you have the right strategy for your product. So the idea is that when we do it in 4 days, we bypass months of indecisive discussion, labour and monetary costs. That's really important. So just giving you, what would you use a sprint for? So this is really important. So rapidly solve big problems, create a new product, improve existing ones are your product strategy. But very important that some people come to it and think it's for, if you don't have your research done, there's no point in doing it. You have to be well prepped before you come into this. If it's UX issues, you're wondering if the buttons should move or we should change the colours or what way should we arrange the pages, that's not an issue that you use for your product strategy. And if you don't have leadership buy-in, that's massive as well. So if you're further down the chain in the company and leadership haven't bought into what you're doing here, you're going to be in trouble. It's just about bringing the team together. So these are just a few things about how we do a sprint, and I'm not going to get into it. We work together alone. We cut out all unnecessary conversation because conversation is abstract. We getting started is better than being right. So people sometimes are very uncomfortable starting a sprint, but they get it after a while. So it's really important just to get started. And you don't rely on creativity. So a design sprint is not about you being creative. And we don't allow mobile devices, and there's little or no talking, and we play a lot of music to stop people from talking to each other. So it's a very different approach to getting shit done. So it's all about, it really is about getting shit done. It really is about that, and doing it really, really fast. And we use, a process we use is note, stick, vote, and prioritize. And again, we just won't have time to get into it, but it's a process that works very well in pretty much everything we do. So to give you an idea, we've worked with TG Carter on this, so we gave them a new direction for their player landing page. TG Carter, their biggest issue was that the people who were using the player, they found out were generally just people who have a graw for Irish, but they actually have incredibly good content, so they want to extend beyond that. So that was our challenge to work with TG Carter. Utilising the Sprinter process for other projects. So now, after their team got together to work with the front page of their landing page for the player, they're now bringing the process into other departments. And there's a renewed focus across the whole team, because what the sprint does is it brings all of the team in together. So most of the solutions you'll find for one problem in, let's say, in the funnel within your business will be solved by someone in another one. That's a really, really big thing, and that's one of the biggest things that happen in the sprint. We had a fintech client as well who's used the process, and they validated a new market concept, and they actually used the prototype from the sprint outcomes as part of a successful pitch to an investor and partner, and that was in the millions. And the new energy and focus on the project. So they got with their product strategy that they had, they were trying to validate a product. They were getting tied down in it. The project wasn't really going anywhere. So we came in and did the sprint and just rejuvenated the team. So a good strategy. So everyone's on about innovation today, but a good strategy gets innovation, brings you to innovation. And most importantly, I think the iceberg under any innovation is actually execution. So it is back to that thing of getting shit done will bring you innovation. Not looking for innovation, creativity in a wild space. It just doesn't happen. And that's by Scott Belsky, and he's a really good book as well. Can't remember the name of it now, but it's very good in terms of you putting together, building a digital product. It's a very good book on that. So just the takeaway then for a strategy then. A good strategy is a coherent mix of policy and action designed to cement a high stakes challenge. So that's really important. It has to be a high stakes challenge for it to be a strategy. And if it can't be proven right, which it can't be because you can't see into the future, it's a hypothesis, so it should be tested with a design sprint. So you should really, but if it's going to be a job that's 100,000, it's worth doing a design sprint to work out if this is actually going to work. And it gives you a clear path to go to the next stage. And like I said just earlier, good strategy leads to innovation. That's the only way. And the iceberg under any innovation is actually execution. And the final thing is work with people who have skin in the game. And I can't emphasize that enough. So what I mean by that is work with people who are actually working in industry, and you'll get places a lot faster.